Welcome to The Future is Bright, the Nevada Women's Fund podcast, where we shine a light on the transformative impact of women across Northern Nevada. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories of meaningful conversations and critical issues that highlight the limitless potential of women as drivers of positive change.
Beth Smith is a local mom of 2 boys, president of the Washoe County School Board, and trustee representing District D, and gaming industry professional. Beth began her service as a trustee in 2021 through a public appointment process and has since won 2 elections to keep the seat. She is passionate about protecting and advancing public education for the benefit of our children and the future of our community and country. Beth Smith's professional history outside of public service includes more than 20 years in the gaming industry spanning marketing, communications, policy, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Raised in Connecticut, she graduated magna cum laude with her Bachelor of Arts from the University of New Hampshire, majoring in communication and double minoring in business administration and political science. Beth lives by the philosophy that change is a series of small adjustments made over time. Washoe County has been her chosen home for 23 years.
I am the president, not just because, a minimum of 4 of my colleagues voted for me, but largely because Angie was like, this is yours. You are next. And she was the one who brought that to me because I did not even contemplate it at the time. I was also actively in chemo. But she did that too. She was like, I did that. I was the president of the board while I had cancer and went through chemo. You totally got this.
I forgot that she had cancer.
Yeah, I'm not even the first school board trustee to be diagnosed with, beat, and be the president of the school board with cancer because Angie blazed that path for me.
That
She's
job
like,
should come with like a spa day or something.
It should.
Like a day
there
of
should be
self-care.
at least a buy one, get one.
Yeah. Yeah, buy one, get one. That's so smart. Yeah. So your friends can come with you.
I love that we're recording all of this because I feel like we just saw who Beth Smith is without even introducing her.
Mm-hmm.
I ran for was the school board president with cancer.
Yes.
I love these clips too. Like we could take them and put them into little.
Yeah, they can be little teasers too.
Little teasers. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Should we rewind and start with hi, Kalila?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh yes. Hi. We're starting.
That always recording thing. Hi, Kalila.
Hi, Isla. How are you?
Good. Episode 5.
Episode 5 of Nevada Women's Fund podcast.
The future is bright.
Yes, ma'am. It is bright. Mm-hmm.
And today it's bright with Beth Smith. I'm so excited to have Beth Smith here with us.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
This is the second time you've been invited, and your schedule is so busy right now that the first time she couldn't make it, but she said, please ask again. I was like, don't worry, I will.
Both of your schedules so
we
busy,
are.
so I'm happy that we could make this happen. Welcome, Beth Smith.
Thank you.
Let's start with the basics. Who is Beth Smith? What do you want us to know? Maybe tell us something you don't want us to know.
I'll start with what I don't want you to know. I don't like the skin on apples. That's my weird human thing. When you bite into an apple, I peel it beforehand. Yeah. That's my strange thing. But I'm a mom here in Washoe County. That is the most important thing to me, is my family. And that is really the genesis for everything that I'm a part of now. And not just for my own kids, but really for all kids. And so, but not originally from here. So I have lived here 23 years, so Washoe is my chosen home. Mm-hmm. Born and raised.
East Coast girl.
Yeah. Well, and there is a lot of that in how I serve here, too. There's like an assertiveness, I don't know, from where I'm from, which is Connecticut. And then I've been out here and working in the gaming industry, and I'm very proud to be the current president of our school board here.
I think that's important. You were a working professional with a very high-level job with one of the biggest employers in our community, or at one time was, IGT. What did you do with IGT?
So I was with IGT for 16 years, although gaming overall for over 20. And what I did over that time was marketing, communication, a lot of policy work, which comes in handy now, and then diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is something that gets very misunderstood and maligned, but I'm incredibly proud to have been a part of, and it laid the foundation for so much of my understanding now that I serve the public in this way.
Very nice. So you're at IGT, you're working a full-time job, you're raising 2 adorable little ones, you have a lovely husband. You said it's just not enough. I just want to add one more thing to my plate.
What more
right?
can I do?
Yep. That one more
love
thing
that.
moment was standing outside my older son, who's in 8th grade now, standing outside his kindergarten classroom in August of 2016 and seeing a whole bunch of little yellow bumblebees on this bulletin board. And it was the start of school or early into the school year, and there were all of these little yellow bumblebees on this board with all these names on it. And I was counting them until I got to 45. And that was the moment that I realized that my son was in kindergarten with 45 5-year-olds. And it changed my life.
One teacher?
One teacher.
There were 2 teachers. So team teaching, but 45 kids in one regular sized room. And I had never seen professional dedication like the 2 women that were the kindergarten teachers that year. I was inspired by them. I was frustrated by the process. I knew that we could be doing more. But in those moments, you fundamentally have to decide, are you going to be upset? Are you going to complain? Or are you going to be a change maker? And by no means can you always be a change maker. But in that moment, I realized, what could I be doing to do more? And ultimately that led to me volunteering with the school district, being appointed to the zoning advisory committee. I had a wonderful woman before me, Melina Raymond, who I did not know. She was the school board trustee at the time. I literally sent her an email saying, I'd like to talk to you about this. I want to understand what we can be doing. And she invited me for coffee and she encouraged me along the way. And then in the summer of 21, an opportunity came up to be appointed to the board. And so I was really honored that they chose me. But yes, I was working full time in a global corporate role. I had a young family. And at this point, my younger son had also been born too. And I started my public service work on the school board. And it was a lot, like a lot.
Was there ever a moment that you thought, I can't do this? Did the doubt creep in, or were you so set as a mom and wanting to help the school and the children that you thought, this is going to be crazy, but I'm going to do it?
So I've always been able to add capacity. So when I was a woman of achievement, we had an amazing speaker, and that was Kaya Stanley, right? And she talked with us about how we expand our capacity, and it spoke to me so fully because I have a lot of capacity. My moments and barriers of doubt is, am I good enough to do this? So I, believe it or not, even when I was diagnosed with cancer in the middle of everything, I always felt like I can do this functionally, but there was self-doubt about, am I the right person for it? Am I really equipped? Do I have the experience? And we see that a lot with women. That's why, by and large, so many studies tell us that a woman looks at a job description or an opportunity and feels that she needs to match nearly all or a large majority of whatever is listed before she would even consider applying, whereas men have a different level of confidence and see a fewer number often and feel that they can do it. So my barriers have always been, am I really the best person for it? Do I know enough? But I've been lucky to have women along the way, specifically women, who have really nudged me and said, you can do this.
That's what I was going to ask her. Who are those people that you turn to in those moments of doubt? Are they your professional peers? Are they individuals in the school district? Maybe you have a sampling across the community of people that you go to and you say, I don't think I'm the girl today.
Help.
I do. And they've been different people over the course of time. So I have a wonderful friend group, and they are fierce and passionate, and they'll be like, you can do this. Like, they're my hype girls. And there's also been women that have seen potential in me that I didn't feel was shining bright enough inside myself. And in my current line of public service, that really started with Melina Raymond, because she invited me to take my passion and then join the zoning advisory committee. And she did start to plant the seed about you would be a very good trustee, even though it wasn't right at the time. And she said something really valuable to me. And she said, well, make sure you don't confuse now not being the right time to never being the right time. And so she really started opening my mind up about self-limiting thoughts with all the things that I had. And then when I did join the board, Dr. Angie Taylor was serving on the board at the time. And the entire reason why I'm the president now is because she told me, you can do this. You are the next right leader for this group, because I didn't see it in myself at the time. So I've been really lucky. And that's what I need. I need somebody in my face saying, you can do this, because my own self-talk can be loud. So I need someone to be louder than my own doubt.
One of the things women professionally struggle with, unfortunately, is we, and I don't want to say we as in you and I, but in general, women see one another as competition, where we should be lifting one another up and cheering for one another and helping the person in front of me elevate and pull the person behind me up with me. You often see it's quite the opposite. And I love that you have found those women that are going to push you when you need a push and pull you when you need to be pulled. And if there's anything that I can say today, it's that let's all be the woman who encourages and pushes our friends when they need to be pushed and pulls them when they need to be pulled. Let's elevate together.
I think that's a great way to start the podcast, because that's really what this is about, right? It's just the women in your life that have helped you get to where you are and who see you differently. And I love that you said that. I love that you mentioned Dr. Angie Taylor. We were just talking about her before we started recording. But what baffles me is that you had this job, right, with this corporation, and you were doing these amazing things, and you still had self-doubt, and you still needed somebody to say, you can do this, right? I think that's so important for us to hear, listening to someone in your position and people that get to places that we want to be, to just hear that you still need that encouragement from the women in your life, especially to let you know you can do it and that they see something in you that you don't. So
it's
I
really
love that
great
you share that.
To know that Beth Smith walks in a room and maybe has imposter syndrome sometimes.
Yeah. It helps a little bit.
I absolutely do.
Yes.
It's like whenever I have to speak publicly, it always makes me nervous. And I often hear, oh, you do such a good job of it. And I am very open about the fact that it makes me very nervous, because to present otherwise would be false. Mm-hmm. And there are many things I do that do come naturally. And then there's also many things that are scary for me, like change. I am proud of so many of the changes I've been a part of and I've helped lead. Nonetheless, change is very difficult for me. It is not a natural trait. It is something that I have to constantly stay mindful of. It's also why I have the one and only tattoo that I have.
Oh, do tell. Now,
yes.
do tell. The thing we don't know about Beth Smith.
There you go.
A tattoo.
Yeah, I do.
Give us the
And
juice.
she got it. She's touching her left hip.
I'm touching it right here. It's right in the back here. So I got it freshman year of college, 1997, and it is a butterfly. And funnily enough, my parents thought I was going through a Mariah Carey phase.
Huh.
Yeah, it was not. It's about change. My tattoo reminds me it's metamorphosis, that change is and can be painful and difficult, and yet it can be beautiful. And so to not lose sight of that, or not to be scared for the challenge or even the pain and the struggle, because on the other side can and usually is something beautiful, even if you can't see it in that moment. And so even in my wise age of 18, I knew this about me. And so I carry this with me. I love it just as much as the day I got it, but I carry it with me as a reminder about change, because I need a constant mindful reminder of it. And so I have mine.
That's a pretty good first tattoo.
It's the only one I have. There's nothing I've ever come across that I've loved as much as this.
I love that.
But yeah.
And I'm just going to say that's before tattoos were cool. Right?
My first tattoo, I was in Fallon, and I was 16 years old, and I cannot say that I look at it and love it every day. So that's a good one, a good thing, a good reminder of embracing change. I
Absolutely. Okay, thing you are most proud of to date outside of momming, which we all know that would be our number ones probably, are the families that we have been able to nurture professionally.
There's a few. With my public service, I am so proud to show our community and nationally, because we have received attention for that government can be done differently. Service can be done differently. Leadership doesn't have to look like the pyramid like this. It can be like this. It should be like this. Like, you can make systemic change in large organizations with the right people, the right mindsets, and what I like to call fierce kindness. You can be fierce and kind at the same time. You don't have to choose, and you also don't have to sacrifice results. And that is what I am so proud of. And I feel like that is something that the community has connected with me on. And I am so proud to be a part of those changes within our school district and within the state as well, too.
Fierce kindness. I love that so much. You can have a voice and you can have an opinion. You can have a very strong opinion and you can lead. You can lead with kindness.
And you don't have to cut people down to do it, even when you disagree. And that goes to what you were saying before. We have to rise together. Nobody wins when someone is lower. We only evolve when we rise together. And so that is something that I fundamentally feel in my heart.
Can you talk about that change a little bit when you first started on the board? What it was like going into what was already there, right? We talked a little bit about how it was a lot of men and they were somewhat on the same plane. But can you speak to that a little bit about that change that happened?
Yeah, the board's had a lot of culture change, and I came in at a truly wonderful time when there were 3 new trustees that joined at the same time. So Joe Rodriguez, Adam Mayberry, and me all came onto the board within a very short amount of time of each other. And that really led a total culture change. Now, to be really clear, the board has had wonderful people on it in the past, but there has to be a mutual commitment to a culture change. And so many of the people that were serving there were open to this. It just hadn't been the right perfect storm, if you will, for it. When I first joined the board, I always felt that it was the post-pandemic time. We were still really in the pandemic. We were in fight mode against the coronavirus and all the things that were happening, and a lot of division within the community. I had a lot of questions about how we did things, but it wasn't the right time to get into a lot of that. And I was frustrated when I first came on, not because of anyone individually, but because of the way that the system worked. And I did fundamentally feel that the 7 people sitting at that dais and leading the school district needed to be involved in a different way. And that very much matched Joe and Adam's style. I'm also Angie. And again, I'm not excluding any of my colleagues. It was just a new commitment that was made, and also a different level of being active and asking questions. And that is fundamentally your role. So different governing bodies can follow different governance models. And you can have a governing body that is there to really just make high-level decisions, but also stay siloed from what's happening. But in that time, myself and other colleagues made the commitment to be in our schools more than any trustees had ever been in our schools before, meeting with parents more than in recent history. And again, I'm not comparing before COVID, but to just do this differently. And then that also led to understanding that we needed different leaders that were also okay with that. We have a lane, other leaders have a lane, but we were going to be more engaged. And those are just decisions that we've made. And the community has continued to choose people that also reflect that engagement style.
What did you learn by being immersed in the schools with the parents, with the teachers, with the day-to-day boots on the ground. What were some of your takeaways?
So I got to see firsthand how hard our teachers and our educators were working and how dramatically underpaid they were. That I had known for a while, and I really set my intentionality to it. And that is one of the things, like on a micro level, that I'm incredibly proud about, was being a part of giving our teachers a 20% raise. Because our educators are truly the basis for everything we do with our kids. And the fact that they had to be working second or third jobs to make ends meet was definitely not okay. In addition to that, I also saw that most families really love their teachers. So there's this huge disconnect between most parents. They may have had individual experiences, but by and large, they like their children's teachers or their schools that they're at, or they've moved to other options in the system that are a better fit for them. So there's a lot of happiness and being satisfied with the education their children are getting on that level. But then when you look into the public space, there's all this negative messaging around the district. And that really puzzled me. So how could there be all this negative press and all this frustration in social media, all these bad things, yet most people that I talked to were really actually happy with the education that their kids were getting. And so that opened my eyes to the disconnect in what gets reported or hyper-reported versus the lived experiences that are every day and really the talent we have in our schools.
And when you became president, we had a superintendent that I think you were part of the hiring process. We were very excited about her. I still think was a lovely individual and wish she would have stayed longer. But then you had to go through the very difficult process of this individual leaving, bringing back our former superintendent as interim. And she told me a story recently, Kristen McNeil. Her phone rang and it was a FaceTime call. And I really love this about you. I have a lot of respect because you can shoot somebody an email, you can shoot somebody a text, you can pick up the phone and call them, but if you really want to know how they feel about the question you're about to ask them, you want to see their face. And this was an emergency situation. And she told me she saw it was a FaceTime call from you. And you said, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, I need to see your face when I ask you this question. And your question was, will you come back and lead our school district?
I love that you know that. And that is exactly what happened. I told the whole family I needed to make a phone call. So I was in my room. And I had to do that because when I was telling Kristen about the changes and the fact that I needed her, asking her to come out of her well-deserved retirement to lead our district while we did another superintendent search, I didn't feel like that was just something I could do on the phone. And it's just not true to who I am. I needed to know that I was looking at her and sharing this with her, and through technology, I had to be able to connect with her because I also told her, I need to know that we've had this conversation. And so we know the answer was yes, but that's intrinsic to who I am. You need to have that connection. Doesn't mean I don't ask plenty of people things via text or email, but something like that, I need our hearts to connect while I ask you to do something that is going to be a paradigm shift in your world, and not just, a question that I ask. So
it also speaks to the fact that you understood this person has to be invested in this response in the same way I'm invested in her response. And I want to be able to see in her eyes, she's all in, because that's what we need. You cared enough about, you called it a paradigm shift. I'm going to call it a hurricane that was happening, to make sure that we had somebody in the eye of that storm. You were that person, and you needed to bring somebody in to calm the hurricane, calm the storm, and move us into our next chapter.
Yeah, and for me, the way that I feel energy from people, there are so many nonverbal cues, and I can't do my best work to be reassuring or to lean into concerns or even excitement unless I'm really feeling someone. And you can do that over the phone and maybe sometimes via text, but to really connect with someone, I need the full picture of who they are so that I can be with them in that moment and have that conversation, like a real dialogue. Like a real dialogue on something, whether it's a big topic like that or something else. Like, you have to be truly connected in that moment.
Which I think leads to the next question, which is Joe Ernst.
Yes.
So I bet you guys have had some deep conversations, some difficult conversations, some very heart-to-heart conversations. Tell us what you see in him, what we should expect as parents, as leaders in our community from the school district going forward, and then most importantly, how can we support?
I love that. So we're so excited to have Joe as our new superintendent, and he's been with the district a really long time. So communities need different leaders at different times, and nationally, the turnover in superintendents is just under 3 years. It's not nearly long enough. So unfortunately, what we're experiencing or had experienced in the past is the norm nationally, but it is not good enough and it is not okay. So Joe is absolutely the right superintendent for us, and I hope for many years to come, because he's been in this community for so long. He has been an educator in Washoe County for over 25 years. He started off as a classroom teacher, an assistant principal, a principal of several elementary schools, including Anderson. And then he also taught over at GOM. So he has had experience in the community. And that with Anderson Elementary School, which is one of our schools in more underprivileged areas, he took that school in one single year from one of the lowest performing elementary schools in the entire state of Nevada to one of the top performing elementary schools in the entire state of Nevada that had Title I status. And so he has a commitment to think outside the box and to really understand the community and to also draw people in. And I found him really compelling as a candidate, and the community responded so positively to him. And we had a unanimous vote. We're 7 very different people on our board, but yet we were totally focused and in agreement that Joe Ernst was our next leader. And we're already seeing the benefits of him in this role, and then also with Kristen coming back. And we saw that with some of the new ratings that have just come out from the state. Over half of our schools have moved up in their star ratings. We have had a 700% increase in our elementary schools that are 5-star schools. So we're very much moving in the right direction, which is ultimately what I know the community and the families are interested in.
You said that when you're in the schools, when you're in the classrooms, when you're talking to parents, those parents are satisfied.
On the most part, yes.
When we're in the community, all we hear is the negative chatter.
Yes.
What is the disconnect, and how can we help bridge that disconnect?
One of the largest challenges that we have is make-believe on social media. So there are many very real challenges that we have, like around funding. Quick fun fact, thanks to the 2023 legislature, we now receive about $9,300 per student, which is a big increase from where we were at before, which was $6,500. So prior, we had $6,500 per student on average. Now we're at $93,000, but it's important to remember that the national average is over $15,000, okay?
Wow.
So those are real challenges, like hard, actual, real challenges. On the other side, real challenge, but not accurate, is a lot of the misinformation that gets put out, which I find to be ideologically motivated or just to kind of tear things down. One of my favorite lies, really, is when you hear that Washoe County is 48th in the nation, 48th in the nation. Like, that has never been true of anything. Now, we were in the state of Nevada 48th in the nation based on per pupil spending, and that was prior to the 23 legislature, back when we were receiving $6,500 per student. But it wasn't Washoe County, and it wasn't the performance of our children, and it wasn't the talent of our team, and it wasn't even the academic ability, because actually we do really well. Washoe actually leads the state in almost all indicators, meaning Washoe's performance lifts up the average for Nevada. And that's also why when we do our performance indicators for the public, the senior leadership team will pull out Washoe County's individual performance and show that we're better than entire states in performance. So there's so much misinformation, but I feel like negativity is moths to a flame, and people want to believe these things. And that's not to say that we don't have challenges and we can't be better and we shouldn't be better, but incorrect narratives out there where people just want to be frustrated, and it's really disheartening.
What are your goals then in over the next 3 to 4 years? We would all love to see our teachers make more money. We would all love to see more funding for school improvements, capital improvements. But I'm sure the prioritization of those, we can't imagine how many things you're trying to prioritize that we're unaware of. So what are the goals that you have that you're working, I'm sure, hand in hand with Superintendent Ernst and the rest of your trustees?
Yes, and so we are doing that. This is where my corporate background comes in. I'm the only trustee on the board, or maybe in recent memory, with corporate experience. And so there's a certain analytical rationality around the money and how it's spent. But the things that we've really been focused on is making sure that children are seen and heard, and it's a whole child approach. So by no means does it mean we're done, of course, but we did give our teachers a 20% raise. But it's really tackling the things that our families are facing. So chronic absenteeism. And it's not just because kids don't want to come to school. There's reasons why they're not coming to school. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we did was make the walk zone smaller. So now 2,000 more kids have rides on the bus. And we put that into effect in February. That was 2 years worth of work to make happen. We also finally added sports for 6th graders in middle school, because originally you could only play sports in 7th and 8th grade, but we really saw a huge jump in absenteeism among 6th graders, but when they're more plugged into their middle school experience, you see less of that. So as we move ahead, definitely compensation and making sure that we are the best place for our teachers and our team members to be working is very important. But also making sure that we're tackling all the reasons why children need help, families need help, and that's why we've been allocating more money for mental health resources. We did put campus supervisors in all of our middle schools and high schools, which are not members of the school police, although I'm a big fan of our school police departments. They're different. They are different adults. And it's really about creating a beautiful cocoon of support around all of our families, because public schools are community centers when they're done right. Mm-hmm. And I do believe we do that right, and we're doing that even more and tapping into the passion. So what I ask people is, when they hear things like that, this is your public education system. This is not 7 trustees. This is not one superintendent. This is not a whole bunch of high-paid administrators. This is your public education system. What's the experience you're having? And I ask people, please, to tell your story based on what your experiences have been, or to volunteer and to get involved. And who knows, one day you might be sitting here. Start off as a parent looking at a bulletin board in a hallway.
Yep. And seeing the overwhelm and what needs to happen. I love that you shared that story, because my experience with you was right after COVID. And I remember sitting in my office at my house during COVID and just being so overwhelmed and frustrated, because my kids I could see that their mental health was suffering. And I remember having a phone call with you for an hour, talking to you about what I could do as a mom and how frustrated I was with the school district and with the school that my kids were going to, and just feeling like we have resources, and being mindful of the people that don't have as many resources as we did at the time, and having that conversation with you. So I feel like you helped me navigate that really hard time during COVID. And I want to thank you because you really have been a huge help to our family in just finding the resources that we need for my kids, right? And you were like, well, maybe they need another school. And we were able to find new schools for them that helped nurture them back to a love of learning. So I think one of the ways that for me was personally, not everybody has Beth Smith's cell phone number. And
no, they do. Everybody can have my trustee cell.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But there's a way to, if you have a question about something, you can call them or reach out to them. Really quick, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but we were talking about before how my son just sent me some information about a school shooting there was something on Instagram that he saw, and he sent it to me.
Here locally?
Here locally, okay. About some dates and some schools of a school shooting that was going to happen locally. And I started to kind of panic, but your name came into my head, and I called you. You answered the phone, and you were able to give me information about what was going on. And I was able to pass that information on to the kids that were on this text stream with my son, and the mom started to text me. And so I was able to relay the information that you gave me about reaching out to Washoe County School District's police force. And you answered the phone, which was amazing. So I think one of the ways that it's been important for me as a mom is to be able to contact our leaders and to be able to ask questions. And so that's one way I know that you will answer the phone and you will give information when it's needed. So that's been really helpful for me as a mom, especially in this climate that we're in.
I appreciate that. I love answering phone calls and texts from families. I visit all the PTA, PTOs, PFAs, booster clubs of all the schools that I represent. I tell people all the time, shoot me a text. Let me know what's going on. I could answer the question. I can get an answer for you. But you should be able to reach out to the people that are serving you. And that's the entire reason why it's called public service. But for the situation you just brought up, we did recently arrest in 2 separate incidents 2 juveniles in our community for those threats. And even sadder than that is that this is very common after a national shooting. We see a rise in threats. Now, these threats, there are no threats to school. This was handled very well. It is my sincere hope that everyone involved gets the help that they need. But when you see something, you have to say something. That's not just something on a poster at the airport. You really have to do that. And that was your part in it because you flagged it with me. I was able to pass it along, and I was able to share that we were already aware. And that is the best way to handle when things like this start swirling online. I tell everyone, oh my gosh, before you forward this to someone else, have you alerted anyone? Like step 1 is you have to alert the right people so that those steps can take place. And I appreciate you doing that with me.
I appreciate you answering the phone and saying, if this happens again, that you trust Washoe County School District's police force, and you gave me a little information about them and how they're separate from, city, state. And so that was helpful for me because the mom started to text me and ask all the questions. And I said, you can reach out to the police force if you see this. It's good to report it. And I could, my kids could talk to my kids about what you were saying was happening behind the scenes. So that was huge for me, right? And at a time where there was just a school shooting. So thank you for that. And I think that's huge, is to know that you can reach out to people that you have questions about, especially when it comes to our kids in this climate that we're in. And especially after COVID was a lot. So.
And that's also how a community sets its own boundaries for decency.
I love that.
Because this is never a good choice. Whether or not there's actually a plan to conduct the harm, to make an allegation like this, to create this kind of fear is not okay. And so this indicates that help is needed. It's also a good opportunity for families to be talking with their kids. Where are you on social media? What is it that you're putting out there? Like, these are important opportunities for families and parents and guardians to also understand the responsibility that they have in what their children are putting out there as well. But I thought that the community did a really good job of how they responded to this. They did trust us to do what was needed, and ultimately that's what happened.
What I see, outsider looking in, is that our teachers and our administrators and our board are almost put in a position of making parental decisions. I'm thinking about cell phones. I'm thinking about social media. I'm thinking about mental health. I'm thinking about school safety, but on the before you leave home side. And it's such a burden, and I don't know if that's right to say, it's such a burden on our teachers who want to instruct and teach to also have to be put in that role of parent or guidance. What can we be doing at home with our kids to ensure them that they're to make them feel safe, and to ensure that their schools are safe, and that the people there, even though middle school is rough, overall people care about them, and that it's going to be okay, and we're going to get to the other side?
So I would say the number one thing that parents and family members can do is make sure that their kids understand accountability and consequences, because for sure we're educating kids, but in my mind, public education isn't just teaching math or how to read. Those things are important. We are functionally creating community members, citizens of our nation, of our county, people that are going to work with us, that are going to marry our children, to be a part of the world that we are creating. And so I ask parents all the time when there has been something that's happened is, it's so hard to not necessarily rush to defend, but also to make sure that they understand that we have to teach kids what accountability is and what consequences are. And that goes both ways. That is not a negative thing. That is a good thing. And that also means celebrating growth. So that can also look like a student who maybe hasn't been doing very well behaviorally, but then starts to make changes, and that is positive. And there are so many positive things. And that's separating it out from academics. Like at my son's middle school, they have something called being a self-manager. And they have so many different ways of honoring children outside of their academic ability that's more reflective of who they are and the growth path that they're on. And so celebrating that growth. And so really making sure that parents understand that we're your partner. Parents are always the first and forever teacher. It's not our role to parent, but we are doing this with you. We're lifting up entire generations as they come through.
I had no idea what you were going to say, and that is such a strong answer. Accountability and consequences.
I know it's probably harsher than what most people would think that I would say, but that's fundamentally it.
Was that fierce kindness?
That is.
Nevada Women's Fund, we award scholarships to young women educating and going into our workforce. And unfortunately, we're seeing fewer and fewer women going into the fields of education. And we, as an organization, want to retain our talent here in our community. We want to make sure that we have incredible women in all industries and in representing fields and supporting the growth of our community, which is the education of our children. What can we do to attract individuals back to education, and especially for this community, Washoe County School District?
I will tell you that the number one thing that we need to do is to make sure that we are compensating our education professionals as valued professionals. So if you'll notice, the line of work that women are often in, like being teachers, often get told, well, you're not going to get rich doing this, but you get so much from it. How many times do we really hear in more male-dominated fields that you shouldn't be well compensated, but gosh, you'll feel good at the end of the day? That may be true, but you should also be compensated as well. And those are all, there's dominoes that need to fall. So individually, we have to know who we are electing that are making the decisions around education budgets. We have to know who we are putting into leadership roles to make decisions about how that education money is being spent. So you've got the state level, you have your local level with a school board, and then making sure that a community is setting its own intentionality about the value of educators. And I believe we are very much in that direction right now. now, and that's amazing. But we really have to make sure that educators know that they are foundational to the future of our county and country, and then we would attract more to them. And we've been doing that. And so there's a lot of like policy work that we've been doing, work with our labor associations. I'm a big proponent of labor associations and groups and making sure that we're elevating everyone. And so what does that look like? Because those are all like, la, la, la. What does that mean? So I would say that we have the best relationship in recent time with all of our labor associations, our unions. We have worked with our teachers union to take what we call labor savings, which is those are roles that aren't filled, which means we're not paying that salary out. So we take the money that we have had because those roles aren't filled, but our educators are still doing that work in classrooms with lots of students or caseloads. So we worked with the Labor Association to divvy all that money that wasn't being spent on the salaries because the positions were opening, and we reallocated all that money to all the teachers that had caseloads or class sizes above the appropriate ratios. By no means does it compensate them fully, but it's a step in the right direction to saying we see you, we value you, and we are going to maximize in every which way your professional value, because they have their PhD, they have their master's, they're continuously going through additional education and licensure. And so we should be showing them that value the way that we would a doctor or lawyers or any of those things, because in my mind, the role of an educator is absolutely in the same echelon as those groups.
Absolutely. I'm just going to plug Nevada Women's Fund Scholarship Program and say we have scholarships for women going into education. If you want to become a teacher, get a scholarship from Nevada Women's Fund and then go to work for our school district. Be the future. Teach the future.
We would love for them to join us. I think the line of work is amazing. We can't do what we do without our teachers. And again, we're in the right direction. So it's a really good time to join, which is why, quick plug, we had the lowest number of vacancies for teachers in any recent memory.
Congratulations, because I know that that's been a gap.
We started this school year only down about 30 roles, which was, when you consider that we employ over 4,000 educators in that space, that's remarkably good. And again, a lot of those changes were changes that Mr. Ernst made when he came on too.
Very good. Okay, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I want to know what Kalila can be doing, what Isla can be doing, what the people who are listening can be doing to support our school system.
Volunteer. Go fill out an application, read to kindergartners, make photocopies in an elementary school. Yes. If you don't want to come in, donate a box of pencils, reach out to any elementary school and say, hey, can I sponsor your Student of the Month assembly? There's so many different ways. Get involved. Get involved.
So you can pick up the phone, call a local school and say, I have $500 I would like to donate to you, and they will put it to a specific event. Put your name on it, maybe. You get a little plug and you know you've done something good for that school.
Absolutely.
I love it.
There's so many ways to
give
volunteer.
of yourself.
Yes.
We all have power and light and energy and love, and pour that into our schools. Give of yourself in the ways that you can.
And it's as big as giving $500 or even just going in and stapling papers. There's a list of things that you can do depending on your bandwidth and your time. And it's so fun. I love being in the schools with those kids. The energy is just amazing. Yeah.
I was at the governor's mansion recently, just this past weekend for a lunch, not in the governor's mansion, but the room next to it.
I was at the I love it. I love it. Tell us.
And somebody said, have you been here before? And I said, my son's 5th grade field trip. And I think about the opportunities when you volunteer. I've never been in the governor's mansion. I'm not going to have opportunities again, but I did when he was in 5th grade.
What grade is he in now?
He's a senior in college. I think it was that field trip. He's like, I'm in. No.
Yeah.
I just think when you there are many doors that have been opened, friendships that I made over many years by being present and around my children's classrooms and their schools.
And even if you don't have kids, you can volunteer as well. They go through a process, so it's super fun. Yeah, that's a great way.
All right, what do you want to leave us with?
Gratitude. This has been an amazing experience. And if anybody listens to this or sees this conversation, I hope that they feel inspired by whatever their 45 little yellow bumblebees is. Like, you can do this. You can be a person that identifies something, and years later, you could be sitting with two amazing women to talk about all the people you lifted up and how you are reaching your dreams. And so it's absolutely possible. It's within all of us.
I have so much respect for you, Beth Smith.
Same. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're a delight.
Founded in 1983, Nevada Women's Fund emerged to rectify the national disparity in funding allocated to women and women's organizations. Over the years, Nevada Women's Fund has contributed nearly $10 million in education scholarships and grants, fostering the empowerment of women across northern Nevada. Today, Nevada Women's Fund remains dedicated to spotlighting and dismantling barriers to education and ensuring women receive the necessary support and opportunities to advance their professional careers. You can contribute to Nevada Women's Fund's mission by donating to their scholarship and grants program at nevadawomensfund.org or email info@nevadawomensfund.org to learn about more ways to get involved.